The transcendent experience is, you know, you've let go of everything, and your return from transcendence um, is very clear, which is um, the system returned because we can't live transcendently, and gradually the person kind of took back over the system of breathing and eating and thinking and and feeling, because you were, much to your surprise perhaps, um, into the same body that you left. And that is the kind of essence of transcendence, where you fully recognize that your own identity, my Jim Fadimanness, is a subset of who I and you really are. And that changes your way of being in the world, as no other experience can. I have one that really fits where you're talking about. I'm aware that I know everything. I know the nature of time. I know the nature of reality. I know everything. And then a part of me says, does Jim Fadiman know this? And the answer is, of course not. And then the image that came later, it's as if you go to a coral reef, and a coral reef maybe has 10,000 different species, and you find a parrotfish. And its parrotfish has lived there all its life. That's all it knows, is all these things about the reef. And you say to the parrotfish, can you describe to me the ecology of this reef? And the parrotfish looks at you and says, are you effing crazy? I'm a parrotfish. My brain is smaller than a hazelnut. Of course, I can't understand the entirety of this world in which I'm in, but I'm in it. And that was a very sobering moment, because when I returned to being Jim Fadiman, I recalled that there is a place in which I, and the I is a questionable what that is, knew everything. And that's fine, because it's nice to know that the universe, in a sense, knows itself. And that we don't ask a tree, like, which psychedelic company should you invest in? Okay, because trees know a lot more than we do about a lot of things, but they don't know much about the market and so forth. So that you look at the species you are and the things you've got to work with, and you do the best you can.
How did you come up with it?
The way most real science is done, just by putting together the few little bits I understood. And what I realized early on with microdosing is, for many people, it's a 2-day effect. And many people say, wow, the second day is even better. Okay. So there I had 2 days. And I thought, well, I'm trying to find out what's going on. This is way early. And I thought, well, what I'd like is if people would have a third day in which the effect was very little. So they would, in a sense, go back to ground. So from my point of view, when they went up again, they would notice it. So the 3-day protocol was never designed as an ongoing useful protocol. It was designed for my research. Okay. Now, of course, what happened is people found that it was an interesting way of working. It was super safe. And what happens after about maybe 10 cycles, that third day really begins to blend with the other 2 days, because you've shifted your capacity. You simply shifted your base, so that now microdosing, in a sense, is less effective because you're at another level. So the answer is, it was by happenstance and mistake, like most important science is. Now and then, even the wisest and most developed of whatever psychedelic people call themselves, you can get into trouble. Okay, I've been driving a car for 60 years, and I have almost never had an accident. But I did have one, and it was a head-on collision. Okay. Now, it wasn't because I'm a bad driver. As the court said later, it was ruled an accident. Okay, so things happen, and it's very useful to have someone nearby if you get in trouble. The other reason for having a guide is you're much more willing to go a little farther if you know there's a safety and a backup. That's all. If you're guiding yourself, you will hopefully keep your experience narrow enough to feel safe. And for people who want to go beyond themselves, it's good to have someone. They don't have to do anything. I mean, one of the nice things about guiding, when I really was doing it seriously, is at least for 3 or 4 hours, people didn't need any help ever. So I brought something to read. I was there. But if someone then looks up and says, and I remember this was a senior scientist at a major company, and he looked at us and he said, "I don't trust you." Now, that's a tricky one because we were there to be helpful. Now, what was happening inside of him is he realized that the reason people were being given psychedelics is so that they could take the souls of these people and put them into soldiers in a galactic civilization that was at war, put them into kind of robots, and that we were like a little recruiting team. So every time we said relax, we were like getting him ready to be shipped off to Alpha Centauri. Okay, that's tricky. Okay, that's not something which you on the inside can handle. Now, it worked out and he was fine and so forth, but things happen. Okay, and it's useful simply to have someone available if you need it. Just as if you're taking a good time, you're guiding, you're taking care of yourself, and there's a knock on the door. And it's the local police. They're looking for something that has nothing to do with you, but that's not a good situation for you to be in.
Yes.
So things like that. So it's not that you aren't capable of guiding yourself, but now and then it's nice to have a backup of some sort. If you had a high dose, it takes a long time to integrate the insights that you got. When we were in the 60s, we did a study and we used an instrument that was supposed to be super stable. You know, if you were measured at 20 and 40 and 60, should have the same score on this instrument, a couple of hundred questions. So that felt good to us. That was nice. So we gave it to people after a high dose. They totally shifted on all kinds of interesting parts of themselves. And it took about 6 months before they reestablished a stable personality. Okay. Now I realize these days, if I said to you, well, every 6 months, many of your listeners would say, he doesn't know anything, man. He doesn't know about my mind. And the answer is no, I don't know much about your mind. But what I do know is if you want to get the maximum benefit, is take enough time to integrate. And the other secret is you've had a high dose and your life is changing and people are lovely and you love nature and your work's going well. And after about a month, you think, yeah, man, I really want to go back and have that again. And what I've learned is usually that means you've just come to a place in yourself where you have to do some actual inner work. And rather than do that, you'd like to go escape back into being bigger than yourself. So the general rule of thumb is if you feel you need to have another experience, probably look at what's going on rather than assume that your higher wise self just likes you to take drugs.
I think that's brilliantly put. And I like this idea of it takes 6 months to reestablish a stable relationship with your reality or yourself. One of the reasons that I did do it at that cadence was, sure, the experience is just beautiful and incredible, but I also found that it kind of helped me reach in the 4 or 5 weeks afterwards a certain state of neuroplasticity and cognitive ability. Yeah. But that's something I wanted, and it was a desire that maybe that wasn't the answer. Speaking of that,
for you at that time, and what's nice is you're having a different answer at this time, and yes. That's the nice thing about the human experience. We're not mechanical beings. We're not little machines. Just as, I have a garden and I've got a couple of, tomato plants. They don't need fertilizer every day. They do need fertilizer now and then. They need water different time than they need fertilizer. And they have their own rhythm.
And that may
So
change season to season.
absolutely.
You can only choose one for the rest of your life: microdosing or macrodosing. Who you got?
Microdosing.
Jim, there's an alien invasion and they're trying to decide if they should annihilate us and take all of our resources. And they come to you. You are our speaker. You are our leader. And they say this head alien says, "Hey, Jim, look, I got to run. I got this hot date with this really cute alien. But can you tell me why I probably shouldn't annihilate the human race?"
Yeah, we're more useful to you alive.
Okay, that's good. That's really good, actually. Okay, for the purposes of this question, take yourself out of the running because you definitely are on this. Who is in your psychedelic Mount Rushmore?
Oh, Paul Stamets, without a doubt. Michael Pollan actually is more of a hero than he may understand in terms of moving the culture forward. Yeah, that's enough for now.
Okay. All right, we got 3 of them chiseled. We'll come back maybe to that 4th one. 4th question, Jim. Does psychedelics make you better in the bedroom?
Why not? High doses certainly don't. Microdoses either, and this is, we got lots of research, either raise your libido, meaning you've got more sexual energy, or you have more intimate contact. So that's what we get from people who say, yes, of course it helps.
Yeah, it's interesting. During the session or during the micro or macro, definitely not. But in the aftermath, sometimes there's a little bit of something else brewing. Okay, last ridiculous, perhaps impossible question, but you're one of my favorite people to ask questions like this, Jim. What is the meaning of life?
I won't tell you. The meaning of life is actually to appreciate it, to have gratitude, and to love other people.